Hello, everybody. It's Frank McGuire.
And Christina Duduma.
And Saba Mir.
And Chris Abana.
And this is another episode of Meanwhile, back on the podcast. On today's show, we sit down to give you our spoiler hot review of Wonder Woman 1984. And Chris is back with us after a lengthy hiatus. And he's pulling no punches as the four of us throw on the members only jackets, grab our fanny packs, and feather our bangs as we revisit the 1980s through the eyes of Patty Jenkins. We turn over every pet rock as we break it down and do our best to answer some of the perplexing questions we all had when the credits rolled, and every one of our wishes for this film sadly went unfulfilled. All this and so much more on this episode of Meanwhile, back on the podcast.
Meanwhile, back on the podcast, four colossal nerds named Saba, Chris, Christina, and Frank have set out to take on a great darkness that has enveloped the world of fandom with their powers of common sense and the strength to take on even the most butthurt Twitter mobs and insufferable comment section trolls. They fight for truth, objectivity, and nuance in the conversation and debate over fictional made-up shit.
So, like we said at the top of the episode, we are talking about Wonder Woman 1984. The newest film from Warner Brothers and DC, and HBO Max, the first feature-length superhero film to be released on a streaming service. That's where I watched it. I watched it on a streaming service. I know it was in theaters in a couple different places, but I wasn't taking that chance. I don't think anybody in my crew rolled the dice and went to see it in the theater. So, and plus, I don't think in Ontario where we are they were offering it in theaters. I'm pretty sure that was a no-go.
Yeah, I don't know if they're even open. You can still order popcorn from them, though. I have done that one time.
Actually, it was in Peterborough. I remember trying to see if I could find a theater that was in reasonable distance to see if I could go. And I think it was in Peterborough because the GTA wasn't on as strenuous lockdown as we were at that point in time.
Got it. Yeah, they had locked us down, so I was trying not to leave because they told us not to.
Yeah. But I think they were showing it like out in like small town Ontario. I'm pretty sure there's a couple theaters that had it open.
Okay. If they had it at a drive-in, I would have gone. I enjoyed that experience, but I actually didn't check because I don't know. I didn't think of it because it's winter.
Yeah, it's also cold if you go to the drive-ins in the winter. It's freezing.
Yeah. Well, Wonder Woman 1984 marked the return of Patty Jenkins as director to come back and direct the sequel to her critically acclaimed first Wonder Woman film. I think we can all say that we all love that movie. I don't think that there's really a lot that you can take away from that film. It was pretty good. I've always been a big fan of that film. And the film was co-written with Patty by Jeff Johns and David Callahan. Don't know David's work. I know Jeff Johns' work.
I was going to say a fun fact about David Callahan is I think he's one of the screenplay writers for Shang-Chi.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. So. And it's Callahan, not Cal. I think I said Callahan, didn't I?
Yeah, it's Callahan.
Callahan.
Like a ham sandwich.
Nice. Okay. He's a ham. He goes to parties and, hams it up. All right, cool.
Okay.
All right. I dig it. And obviously this film is headlined by Gal Gadot, who is our Wonder Woman, our Diana Prince. Chris Pine returns as Steve Trevor. But does he? We'll get into that. We'll get into that. Kristen Wiig makes an incredible debut in the superhero genre as Cheetah, Barbara Minerva, and Pedro Pascal is our big bad filling in the loafers of Maxwell Lord. So let's get into this thing. Okay, so first reactions. Let's get initial first reactions. I'm not going to go first because it's probably going to sour. It's going to sour
I'll go
the
first because I think I'm the only one that liked it.
Okay.
I actually did think this was a fun movie. I enjoyed the comedy parts of it. I liked how it had a lighter, more playful tone and a brighter color palette than a lot of Zack Snyder's DC movies. So actually, I did like it better than Zack Snyder's DC movies. And to me, it felt more like a Marvel movie than a DC movie. So I don't know if anyone else also felt that, but that was the vibe I got from it.
Yeah, I can see that being like it's kind of skewing more on the side of what we kind of see in Marvel movies. I will say my takeaway was, let me think. So I read this somewhere and I forgot where I read it, but someone said it felt like it was made in the 80s. Like, if not, like, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's
especially
kind
in
of
the
right.
beginning.
Yeah.
Especially in the first act.
Yeah. I mean, after the thigh scare, but we'll get into the scenes. But yeah, it felt like it was made in the 80s. It was not necessarily a bad thing. I didn't hate it. Like, I wasn't like, this is the worst thing I've seen. But it was like, I mean, there was points I liked it, but it was not what I was expecting. Let's just say that. It's not what I was expecting.
Okay,
Chris?
before Chris goes, Christina, I'm coming back to you because I'm not letting you get away with that explanation. You gotta give me more than that, than the color palette and you like the comedy. You gotta give me some substance because right now, yes. Anyways, Chris, go ahead.
Okay.
I thought, okay, so this is my first episode back, and I don't want to be so negative.
Then don't be.
Like from an objective filmmaker's perspective, it was such a misstep. And I like Gal Gadot's. Like I feel like the DCEU is famous for casting the perfect people for their roles and then screwing it up somehow. Like Gal Gadot, I think, was like a really good Wonder Woman, but I think this is a misstep in her franchise. I think and what you were saying before, Saba, was like I agree that it like at least the first half of it, omitting the mascara scene, it did feel like it was shot in the 80s, which I would have been lukewarm on anyways. But also they stopped it like halfway through, and it just became just a regular thing that's shot now. But anyways, my main concerns about it was it really wasn't even about Wonder Woman. It was the plot. It didn't challenge her in a way that we haven't seen before. She just went through the same shit she went through the first time, but without any of the like the things that make Wonder Woman, which is like telling good stories about hope, right? And it's like it just felt like she was just there to solve the mystery and punch the bad guy. But however, I will say that there are scenes if placed in a vacuum that I liked.
Yes.
But even they were soured by lack of setup, right? Like, for example, like some of my favorite scenes are the Chris Pine Wonder Woman, like, you know, like man out of the box, has no idea what's going on. The comedy moments, but they weren't set up properly because all I kept thinking about was, oh shit, Wonder Woman just accepted the fact that Chris Pine's character, Captain Trevor, is back from, like, it just wasn't set up. We'll get to the specifics later.
Yeah, there's a scene I want to talk about that I really like between them two, but we'll get to it later.
And also, I think they missed a really big golden opportunity because all I kept thinking in between this movie and the first movie was, okay, so now she's living in the real world. Like, what's Diana like living in the real world? And they completely wasted it because she was so bland in the beginning of the movie, and she just felt like she was going around being all depressed, which is not what Wonder Woman's supposed to be like. But then she also had that mall fight scene where she was winking at like people as she was fighting people. It didn't make any sense. I think they just wasted this time gap between the first and second. Sorry, Christina. Like the time gap between the first and second movie. I thought that was just thrown in the trash. They could have done a lot more.
It definitely was.
Yeah. But anyways, Christina, you were saying
that did feel kind of silly. Like, it did feel like she was moping around about, oh, something's missing in my life, and you know, the only time she was in love was like so many years ago, like, I don't know, 70 years ago or something. So that kind of seems silly.
Let her move on.
Like, she's gorgeous. She's a gorgeous woman. I'm sure some other interesting man would have talked to her.
Okay, so Christina, I want to get beyond the color palette and the Marvel comparison. So what else can you give me here? Because before I go, I've got a lot to say about this film.
Okay, yeah, so I genuinely thought it was fun. I did like the 80s theme. I love the Themyscira scene, that opening scene.
Themyscira?
That
Yes.
was a good scene.
I didn't hate the mall scene that followed it. It did feel like a weird transition. I feel like that mall scene could have been like somewhere else in the movie. I did like that Wonder Woman works as an archaeologist in the day. But I mean, we barely got any of her doing that. Like, the most she does is walks into a museum in a nice outfit
Oh
and
man,
goes
her
to a museum
outfits,
party.
her outfits were on point. Let me tell you, that's one thing I really liked about.
But we didn't really
this
see her
movie.
like being an archaeologist. So we get that one thing where she has all these computer screens, and somehow that has something to do with being an archaeologist. And
It doesn't.
She has
It doesn't.
this like
though.
random
That's like her.
this random artifact from her culture in her apartment, which also seems like a weird place to keep a really old artifact. But
No, the thing
Yeah.
with the screens was like her bat cave. That was her bat cave.
yeah.
Yeah, that was her
But
bat
it,
cave.
it kind of made it seem like she uses that for work or something too. I don't know. I would have liked to see her in the world more. Like I don't think they did a good enough job about creating the world. I
Right.
did like Barbara's character, and I did like how Barbara's character interacts with the world and lives in that world. And I did like seeing that character's arc develop, although I think it did end in an anticlimactic kind of way. But I did like to see her going from being this like nerdy kind of scared person that gets picked on to kind of a stronger person later.
Sure.
And I
Right.
also think they could have played up like her obsession with Wonder Woman a little bit. Like, why couldn't they make her be
Yeah,
in love with
yeah,
Wonder
yeah,
Woman?
yeah.
Why?
For
Yeah.
sure.
That would have made it make so
I
much more
agree.
sense if she had this like crush on Wonder Woman, and then Wonder Woman like breaks her heart. If Diana like broke her heart somehow, that would have
Yeah,
been more.
I will
interesting.
say the one
That's
the
a good
Kristen.
point.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think the Kristen Wiig scene that I did really like was their conversation when she asked him, Kristen Wiig asked, Diana Prince, hey, have you ever been in love? And she's like, once. And then when she asked Barbara was like, yeah, tons of times. And it just made me laugh.
I thought
out
that was
actually.
great. That was hilarious. But
I
I would
know.
have loved it if she said that and then she was actually in love with Diana. I thought that's what they were setting up. I
Yeah.
thought Barbara was going to be having a crush on Diana,
Mhm.
and then Diana's going to be like, oh, sorry, like I'm not interested or whatever, like something like that. And I think that would have made more sense to me.
Okay,
Mm.
so here's my take. I'm questioning the skills of the entire creative team on this film now. I'm going to be very skeptical of Patty Jenkins and Jeff Johns in the future. And the reason that is because that movie's a structural mess. Technically, it doesn't even flow. There's so many plot holes in the events of the movie where you can literally say, well, what about this? Or what about this? And you can say that almost like 5 or 6 times. The best example I can give you is the invisible plane scene. Well, not even that. Before the invisible plane, Diana is having a conversation with Steve Trevor and saying, you don't have a passport. No, Steve Trevor doesn't have a passport, but the guy, the body that he inhabits,
Yeah.
that guy has
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
passport.
Has one.
I
Yeah.
thought
That
of
guy
that
has
too.
a fucking passport. Okay.
Yeah.
So you did this just to get onto that runway to do your invisible plane scene. That's lame as shit. Okay.
It also made no sense to me how they broke into that facility. Like, why did she have access to a military facility
Oh,
where there
oh
was
no,
military?
That's the
that was like,
Smithsonian. That's the
yeah,
Smithsonian.
That's
They
part
have
of- that's
jets
part of
at the
the-
Smithsonian.
They do.
Yeah,
They do,
have,
but
like,
they're not-
antique ones.
Yeah, but they're not fully fueled and ready for flight. That's
Oh,
the
okay,
thing,
okay.
right?
Got
Yeah,
it.
they're more like antiques.
They're
yeah.
antiques.
No, man, Frank, that it's always ready to go. Always ready.
Yeah, I was
Already-
like, how does this plane have gas in it? Like, what are
See?
the chances
Yeah.
it would just
See?
be ready?
No, and also
it's
like
also-
what your your invisible powers also hides it from radar.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
You gotta
that
explain
too.
that to me.
That too, right?
Yeah, I
So-
didn't think that either. I was like, okay,
Didn't you
sure,
just tell
I'll
him
buy it.
like, oh, like it's like even if it's at nighttime, we can the radar can detect us. So you made it invisible, and somehow radar can't detect you anymore. Like that's so stupid to me.
the lack of logic in this movie is so apparent that I almost thought at one point that somebody edited his sequence out of, edited his scene out of sequence. And I'll give you more details when we get further into it because it's pretty egregious. It's pretty egregious, and I don't know. I feel like they phoned it in. They were blowing it up like it was this big important movie, and the trailers were like doing such a great job on selling me this film as something to really look forward to. And I feel like the rug got pulled right out from underneath me, and I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed in this film. It's not going to age well. I'll tell you that right now. The 80s stuff was campy as shit. It wasn't even like subtle. It wasn't like Stranger Things where it's like subtle and nuanced and
Stranger Things felt more like the 80s though, and
But it's
everybody had the
subtle.
haircuts, everybody had the costumes. It
but
didn't
it's
feel like
subtle.
some
But
of
it-
it took place in the
yeah.
80s and some of it didn't.
Right, but it's subtle. It's not like
yeah. Like it's not self-aware.
Yeah.
Like, this is super self-aware of the fact that it's set in the 80s.
Yes.
It's just like making fun of fanny packs like for
Yes.
15
Yeah,
minutes
that was
straight. It's
silly.
like, okay, come
Yeah.
on.
Also, can I tell you something? I wear fanny packs, but in a cute way, in the cross bag way.
Yeah.
There's
My
nothing
my
wrong-
dad was a
there's nothing
fanny
wrong with
pack
fanny
guy,
packs.
and it did look silly on him. I remember this.
Hey,
and he
yeah.
liked neon ones. They always had to be like a crazy weird color.
I,
So I could
I-
see why they would poke fun of that fashion trend. But then, yeah, I think it became like too much of a thing.
I also do think that maybe we have like 80s overload. You know, there's been a lot of
Yeah.
stuff about like nostalgia
Yep.
and
Yeah.
you know, we've have a lot of shows that are being set
Yep.
in the 80s and movies. So I do think, you know, it's just one on top of the other. And so that's another reason why this one could kind of feel stilted. It's like, okay, we've seen this before, like mall culture. Like I wasn't really even, you know, in the 80s, but like I've, you know, it's like I've seen this before, like, okay, we've lived it or whatever else. So I think that's part of it as well. It was
Yeah.
done in a way that, Frank, I honestly thought that word like campy when I was watching it. Like
It was
some of
campy
Yeah.
shit. It
Yeah,
was
so
to
No,
me,
which
I
isn't
felt-
bad.
And like and honestly, it's also inconsistent because it was campy in the beginning and it just like kind of went away and then it came back with like the fireworks scene and then it just like disappeared again. It was just like this weird on and off thing. I will
Yeah.
address a couple of points. The whole color palette thing. I think like the whole like that does it seem more like a Marvel movie? To be honest, like I think more DC movies should stop trying to adhere to this Justice League darkness. Like it should be as light or as dark as that specific character's movie should be. And I
Justifies,
think like I think because the thing is like you can be as light as you want, but then you can take that character and drop him in a Justice League movie that's meant to be darker, and they'll adapt. It'll feel natural. It's fine, right? But like I agree that like this lighter color palette, and the brightness like worked for Wonder Woman because it was a direct contrast from the first one, which was the opposite. Like Wonder Woman was the only brightly colored thing in a gray palette, and it like reflected in her character versus everybody else's character. However, I don't think it was utilized properly in this, the setting, and it didn't really reflect Wonder Woman's inner feelings, inner workings. It didn't really reflect. It didn't have any like pathetic fallacy or anything like that. And also to your point about pacing, I think that's a weird thing that the DCEU has. Like it's not the first time we've seen this in the DCEU. Like you might want to fight me on this. Pacing issues have been in BVS. It's been in like Justice League. It's just like they have to stop doing this. And when I was watching this movie, if you actually watch Justice League Unlimited, this movie played like an episode of Justice League Unlimited. It was this weird, these two side stories. One of them is a mystery, and one of them is, and it's like, and the character never changes. They don't get challenged inside of the thing. It's just they just solve the problem and then that's it. And to be fair, this would have been a great episode of Justice League Unlimited, but like as a movie, it just didn't feel good. Like, so I'll give you an example. Like this is the one thing I really did not like. In the middle of the movie, it kind of stagnated for me because while Barbara was solving this mystery, I had a hard time feeling invested in this mystery while Wonder Woman and Trevor were chasing down a Lord, because she didn't really solve the mystery. There was just like throwaway scenes of her looking at pictures and then finding a dude that knew all the answers. Like, what's the point of that?
with a book.
Like I don't understand. If that were the case, you're like shirking the mystery side of it. Fine, show me something meaningful while Barbara's doing some stupid search thing. But did they show us anything meaningful? No, they showed us a fight scene and a chase scene that didn't really amount to anything. So it was just in the middle of the movie. I just felt like I could have not seen it, and then nothing would have changed.
Well,
You know
we
what I
did
mean?
get
Because
the
this
scene
guy
where
like
Diana has
tells
to
them all
read.
the answers anyways. Yeah.
Okay, so for me, so the most frustrating takeaway was that this movie had great potential. If you take the
Yeah.
parts,
And the character had great potential.
they had great potential, right? If you take the parts of the film and you separate them out and you look at them from a distance, there's the makings of a great film there. But because of the way it was structured, because of the campiness, and because of the over-the-top characterization for Barbara Minerva at the beginning, and the over the top characterization for Maxwell Lord. And honestly, the way that they introduce Lord into the story is so fucking ham-fisted. It just there's no finesse about it at all. You know, the scene with the burglary? Like, Maxwell Lord should have been paying those guys, and they should have been amazing burglars. They should have been incredible people. And they weren't. They were these bumbling fucking morons. Like, I could have fixed this movie in a night. And all you had to do was kind of change the relationship between the characters. Because Maxwell Lord comes into this story with no lead in, no information other than the guy is on fucking TV. And you immediately lose respect for him because the way that he's flirting, like, that's not cool. That's not Don Draper. He looked like a dork, man. He was like, I like to party. Like, seriously. Like,
to be honest, I think that's what I think that's what they were going for. They weren't going for Don Draper. They were going for sleazy con man.
No,
However,
know.
I did think that they did oversell it.
It felt like a little bit more of like a cartoonish characterization. And this is the issue I kind of had with Cheetah being, you know, when we were hearing Cheetah was going to be a villain, was I was like, it's very hard to do that character and not have it be cartoonish. I think they did a good job of it at the beginning, but near the end, and we'll talk about that, I think it kind of fell off. But I do agree that there wasn't really a build up to him. It just didn't feel like the stakes were high. Like, obviously there were parts in this, like at the end where you're like, yeah, there's high stakes because of the shit that's going down, but he's not a high stakes villain. She's facing a con man. Like, she's not even facing the actual god that is doing this. It's
true.
Just a human.
True.
So I do think it was lower stakes because of that. And
and to pick up on that, like that, like the worst part about that exact point is she didn't really have chips on the table. Like, she already lost Trevor. We all know this. She knew from the beginning of the movie she was gonna lose Trevor again, and it was this weird cheap thing to like bring him back so that she just so she can lose him again. Meanwhile, like, she hasn't moved on however many years.
Yeah.
In the first movie, it was like she was doing her mission. Not only that, her principles were riding on the mission. We need to stop this war because we need to put hope back into man. Like, we need to prove that man is worthy of redemption. And she was invested in that mission. This one, the story was Lord and Barbara's transformation, and she was just there to solve the problem. Oh, and by the way, here's some like phony makeshift high stakes thing. We'll give her Trevor back just so she can lose her again, just so she has some like fake investment into this story. But it's just not natural because she's already lost him. Like, we already know this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. So I know this is something that's come up that people have talked about.
We're going to talk about the rom-com stuff. Is that what you're saying?
Well, not just the rom-com stuff, but I mean this idea of like Wonder Woman still being that much in love with him. So here's the thing. This is what I think would make more sense to me. I think if there was something that happened where she had a moment of weakness and then she like wished for him because something had happened, not that like she's been thinking about him every day, but like something, you know how everyone has like that weak moment and you're like, should I text my ex or not?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like, if it was like that, because it isn't like, it's believable that she still mourns him and that she still thinks about him and as we go through life and stuff, you know, but it doesn't make sense that Wonder Woman would just stop and just live in that zone for 70 years.
Yeah.
No.
For me, at least, you know?
No.
And for sure I could believe maybe that was still her like first love and like she still loves him, obviously, because of the circumstances, everything. But I do think that the way they set it up, in terms of her like asking for him back, that there probably should have been more lead up. Like, something should have happened where she's just like in this like hopeless place, or something happens where she does that, you know?
Right.
Yeah, that would have made more sense. I also think the way he came back was very strange. Like, I didn't like how he took over some other guy's body, and never once did they stop to question this. She's just like, oh, all I see is you. And they don't really think it's a problem.
Yes.
That this guy just like disappeared and they took over this guy's life.
100%, Christina.
It would have made more sense to me if he was just a figment of her imagination and she had to deal with the fact that she's been talking to like this invisible person the whole time.
That would have been pretty cool.
It doesn't make any sense because that guy still exists, right?
Yeah.
So what about his job? What about his family? What about his friends?
These are the questions my whole family was asking. We're
what
like,
if he
but
was gay?
Isn't someone going to call the police?
By a girl. Like,
Yeah,
what the fuck?
it's non-consensual sex. Like that was weird. Yeah, definitely.
Well,
No, but like you pointed out something too, which is like this whole relationship that they had, like this whole like this is what I mean about this like parts of this movie being in a vacuum would have been good is like they had cute moments together, which were admittedly pretty funny. But the thing was like they were like walking on like Washington, whatever, like the Washington, I don't know what they call it, but like they were doing that leisurely walk right after she came back, and she didn't question it at all. It was just like, oh, you're back from the dead. Let's go on a date. It was just not believable.
They
Like, she
understood
accepted
that
the
he's
fact that-
in someone else's body because there's the moment where he's looking in the mirror
But
and you see the
she
other
doesn't
guy.
question this as a superhero. She doesn't question.
Yeah,
Well,
but to me
she-
that
like,
was
what
a
the fuck
is going
problem.
on?
That she didn't
she
care.
did. She did question because then the next day she was like, "We need to figure this out." You
After
know?
she
But-
slept
Yeah, and
with
then,
him.
and then they go for another date.
yeah. Okay.
I mean,
so,
Let's
let
go
me-
figure this
let
out.
me-
But on the
let
way,
me-
let's go for another date.
Let me tell you, if Chris Pine showed up at my door. Anyway, no, I completely, I get it for sure. It is a strange setup. I mean, the body swap thing is a very hard thing to achieve, and
Yeah.
in general, I mean, there's been a lot of body swap comedies
it was
over the
lame,
years.
dude. It was so lame.
But it is it's not a concept I'm super into,
No.
even though
No.
Chris, I was just talking
But-
about.
Okay, so
came from it, but yeah.
Secret Garden.
so
Yeah.
He didn't
So
need
from
to
the
actually
moment-
exist. He could have just been a mental struggle. He didn't have to be real.
Right. So from the moment I heard Chris Pine was going to be in this movie and Steve Trevor was somehow going to be attached to this story, I was like, this is a misstep. Because
Yeah,
if we're jumping ahead 80 years, you're already telling us that there's some level of dependency that Diana has on this character. And that undermines her as a character.
Undermines it. Exactly.
Undermines her
Yeah.
completely. It undermines her independence. It undermines her strength. It undermines her will. It undermines her autonomy.
But I think that was the whole point. Like she basically lost all those things about herself, and we do see that it manifests in the way that she's losing her power.
But for 80 years, and let's
Well-
keep in mind,
No.
let's keep in mind, they knew each other for what, a couple weeks?
Okay.
Yeah, that's where
That's-
it
I mean,
becomes
that's
less
irrelevant.
believable.
Yeah, that is
Exactly.
irrelevant.
I don't
Honestly,
think
with
it is.
love- Okay, so
They
this
weren't
is where I'll-
married.
yeah, here's what I will say for Diana, like that was a monumental experience. That's the first time she's been thrust into this world. Like that is going to like
Literally.
set up core memories. Like, that's going to set up core memories in her that are hard to let go of. That I completely understand. And we do have heroes that like, think about their loves and everything else. And that was her first great love. And I do think it's like her, remembering that and sometimes thinking about that or fawning over it. Like that kind of makes sense. Even like, I know for us, like 70 years is a lot. For Diana, it's probably not as long. So that part, it does make sense. I don't think it makes sense to have like an obsession like it was like yesterday, but more like an acceptance of like, it's over, whatever, and still think about those days fondly. It's, so I don't think her whole like autonomy was gone. I just think it's hard for her to connect to people since then.
Okay, fair point. But the way that I see this, okay, so when it comes to the Trinity of DC, okay, to me, Wonder Woman is probably the most emotionally intelligent character out of the three. Okay, I think that's a fair assessment. And maybe Superman, maybe a very close second, right? So I feel like this undermines that power, like undermines that characteristic of her. Because
I agree. I don't think she asked enough questions about this or tried
It's
to
not
deal
just
with it
that.
soon enough.
It's not just that. Anybody with the emotional intelligence that she has would get, 10 years, 15 years down the road and be like, okay, he's gone. I miss him and I love him and I'll light a candle for him, on the anniversary of his death or whatever, but would have moved on with their fucking life. And for some reason, Steve Trevor has been attached to Wonder Woman through the entire mythology of DC for years and years and years and years. I just don't think it helps the character. He's, I don't know whether he's always there just to show that a woman can save a man or if it's something deeper than that. But like he's worn out his utility. We don't need Chris Pine back in Wonder Woman 3. That doesn't, if that happens, it's going to be the most ham-fisted fucking thing we've ever seen on screen.
I don't think they'll do that. I hope they don't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. You could say the same thing for any sort of other character. Like you could say, and yeah, there's been variations, but you could say the same thing about like Lois Lane or, You know,
Yeah, it's hard to let go of like a superhero's like Mary Jane. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
definitely understand.
yeah, but Lois
in this
Lane isn't Steve
context,
Trevor. Like Lois Lane is completely
yeah, they're
different archetype. Like it's just different. I don't
no,
know.
no, but no. But symbolically to the protagonist of the story, it's
True.
the same thing.
Okay.
You were saying that like, oh, they need to get rid of Steve Trevor because like he doesn't do anything to her. Like in like if you don't take this context,
Yeah.
it's hard to let go of. But like I do agree that in this context, yeah, he should have gone after he died. Like that's it. Like Wonder Woman moves on. And then now we get to find out what she's been doing this whole time, but we don't do that. We don't see that. What we see is her still fucking hung up, and it's like, it kind of retroactively counters the lesson of the first Wonder Woman, because it was like hope against all evil, right? Like that
Yeah.
was the mission of the first one. So and then she succeeds. She beats the god of war and shows mankind that like that hope never dies. And then she just loses all hope anyway.
Exactly.
Like it kind of retroactively fucks over the
Yep.
first movie, which is like you know what I mean?
Yep.
I
You know
think they were
what?
just trying to say for some reason she's lonely. It could have just been a momentary thing. Maybe she has dated other people. We don't know.
yeah.
But she's
I
never
saw-
like been in love with someone else.
Yeah,
that
but
way.
it was never like it was never
But
indicated.
I don't
in the
think they had to
movies.
go to the extent where they like make her have dinner alone and stuff. Like I think she has friends.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
She would have some friends, I think.
Yeah, if you
So-
look like that, you have fucking friends, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's just the way things are. That's the law of the jungle, man. Like you don't Jesus Christ.
Because they tried
Anyways.
to do this whole scene where it's like, oh, so sad. She has to have dinner alone because she's this like lonely businesswoman or whatever, lonely archaeologist in the city. And I didn't buy
There's-
that.
okay.
That scene was kind of
Yeah.
weird.
There's one thing I will applaud Patty Jenkins and Jeff Johns for, and that was no cocaine jokes in an 80s movie. I think that's the first time
Hilarious.
that's ever been done where somebody resisted the urge to put a cocaine joke in an 80s movie or an 80s reboot.
For the dinner scene, the one thing I do, what I said out loud as I was watching it was like, damn, I miss eating up on patio.
Yeah,
It's
for
like
real.
Hilarious.
the first thing I thought. I
For
was like,
real.
man, like I would sit alone on a patio right now at a fancy place with actual people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. We've talked a lot about her character and her relationships and with people, and it seems like basically after her one friend died, because we did see little like pictures of like those friends that she still had and
Etta
like
Candy,
them growing
yeah.
older. Yeah, it seemed like she kind of just cut off. So it like maybe it was like 70 years, but she also still had these relationships for probably like a little bit longer, and
And
so
the thing about those photos is like, I guess she doesn't have anybody over because you don't want anybody looking at that Holocaust photo and being like, yo, you haven't aged a fucking day since
I
like
don't think she-
1941. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah,
Maybe
I
they
don't
could
think
also be
so.
trying to say like she's pretty old, right? So maybe a lot of the people she's known have died. I mean, maybe that happened.
no,
and she
but
didn't bother like trying to make new friends.
Right. But what I'm saying is that the photo would be a dead giveaway that there's something very unique and special
Right.
about her because she hasn't aged a fucking day.
Then you would have to hide your
Like,
photos when you
Exact.
invite that
That's
friend.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. They were all displayed around her apartment, right? But I like the fact that they tied her history back to some world events. I would have liked to see more, to be honest with you. I think
I did like that. Yeah.
yeah, I think maybe photo of her during the civil rights movement would have been really cool. I think something along the lines of like the women's rights movement would have been really cool. But I would have liked to see more moments kind of captured. You know what I'm saying? I think that would have been
Yeah.
I think that would have been very cool.
That's that definitely what I was looking for in this movie was like I wanted to get filled in
yeah.
on what she was doing in between these films, and I just didn't think they delivered. There was a scene that I think I mean there are a few scenes that I like in the movie, but I really liked how they actually added her to flying this time, and it like worked really well because it felt like it was Trevor's gift to her. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it
in
was
his
kinda-
passing, he
yeah.
like gave her the ability, but finally Wonder Woman can fly. Jesus.
Yeah.
There is a technical note that drives me crazy in this movie, but I'm sure like me and only like film majors really would care about this. But my God, they drowned us in underscore. Every scene had music underneath it, and it didn't even need it. It was this weird thing where it's like I felt like they were trying to fill. I felt like the editors knew that like the movie was kind of like missing something. So they just watch it again. Like, do me a favor and watch it again, and just pay attention to the underscore of this movie. They drown you in it, and it's like, and like all I kept seeing was like a scene didn't match the undertone, or even if it did, every scene had it. And then when a scene really needed it, and it actually worked for it. For example, the flying scene that I was just mentioning, like the score for that scene was beautiful, but I had already been fed up with the underscore in this entire movie. I was just like, let the scenes breathe.
Okay, so let's talk about Barbara Minerva. Let's talk about Kristen Wiig and her performance. The moment we meet Kristen Wiig, it was basically like a scene out of She's All That. Every other comedy where, you know, the whole ugly duckling scenario where, you know, a girl meets a guy or meets somebody and they're like, oh, let me give you a makeover. Like, it's the before period, and you get to see them stumble over themselves as they're walking in high heels and dropping shit on the ground, and definitely playing up this whole mousy kind of like bookish archetype for this character right at the beginning. And I really felt like that was clumsy as shit. Literally, like, it was literally clumsy. Like, I'm tired of seeing
it felt a bit over the top. Like, they made it.
It was way over the top.
Yeah.
It was way over.
Yeah,
the top.
like the dinner scene. Like okay, like I found her endearing at first for like a little bit, and then like every line that came out of her mouth before she made the wish was "I'm a loser." It was just like too much, man. Like that dinner scene.
It wasn't.
Pay attention to that dinner scene. Every single line that she says was about her being like.
Yeah, but it wasn't
like, every single one.
Yeah,
it was too much.
Yeah, but it wasn't like I'm a loser. It was more like she was just speaking to her own personal experience socially, and she was being very honest. And actually, I liked that about her.
That dinner scene in particular, it was just like talk about something else. You know what I mean? Like put something else in there, because I felt like she was talking to me directly to me as the audience and telling me what her backstory is. It was just like too much, man. Like I already understood the first 10 seconds that I saw this character that this was her character. But then she just kept saying it over and over again. It was
I also don't buy it at her age. And I think she said she had multiple degrees at one point. And it's like, nah, you're not in grade 9. You're not this like nerdy kid in grade 9. I'm not buying it that you're like in your 30s, you have 5 degrees and you're this insecure. Like,
yeah, that's what I will say. Like, I felt like that. This is why when I said I felt like it was made in the 80s, is that it was pulling like on a trope that I think we've seen a lot.
Yeah.
Where people were like uncharacteristically like mean to her because she's kind of weird.
Yep.
Which is just such
and
a
then it went the
weird
opposite when she became hot.
Yeah, like it felt...
she was running and literally every person was like, "Hey baby, where are you going, baby?"
I did think it was I did think it was kind of fun when, you know, she does the jump and she's wearing the high heels and she doesn't even like slowly she doesn't even realize that she's becoming cooler.
So that I don't mind like her like getting better and everything. It's just like at the beginning when she like dropped stuff and people were like walking by her and like laughing tropey. And then like, you know, the one person was like, "Who are you?" Like it just felt too
high school. It felt like high school, even though they're like in a workplace. Which
it was so tropey. It was so paint by numbers.
Yeah.
Like it was literally like, okay, let's, you know,
one can argue they were going for that though.
Yeah, maybe.
Guess, right?
Maybe, but that doesn't make it good, right? Like
that doesn't make it good. Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't
the creative team,
for sure.
the creative team in these films need to start realizing that their audiences are a lot more intelligent than they think. They really need to start vetting the stuff that they're putting in to these scripts and really talking about, you really think this is going to work?
I feel like they could have made her a bit of an outcast without going so over the top. I don't think they had to like, go to that extreme.
Yeah. So that's the thing I will say. As your character progresses, and you know, as we see Cheetah again, I will say where I really liked her character was in the White House scene where they're in the White House. I thought that was like a better representation, like how she's, you know what I mean? Like that felt like, okay, like I'm getting behind Cheetah. Cause like even before I watched the movie, I was like ready to like not really be too excited about her character. Although I do think Kristen Wiig did go with what she had. But I liked her in that scene. And then because it made sense, like I was like, this makes sense. She doesn't want to lose this thing that she has. And so she's kind of like losing her soul, right? To the stone, like the good parts of her.
Yeah.
But then I do think that when we see her at the very end, it just went too far the other way for me.
Yeah.
I mean?
Well, that's because she gets 2 wishes. For some reason, she's able to make 2 wishes, and then she becomes like this animal.
Also, somebody said it looked like she got left out of the cat's movie, and I was like,
I don't
that-
think it was.
It
Yeah.
was so
Yeah.
it was so goofy, man.
I don't
So
think it was
goofy.
that bad. I don't think the
Ah.
character design was that bad. But let's talk about
I kind of
that.
thought she looked cool. I liked how she had that, like, I don't know, her hair was really cool. It was like shaved and, like, I don't know, styled really interestingly.
Okay, let's talk about that first wish, okay? Because that's where there's a huge plot hole for me, okay? So Barbara wishes to be more like Diana, and then she
Yeah.
slowly starts to notice her abilities and her strength and her agility changing at an alarming rate, right? She literally picking up 600 pounds with no effort at all in the gym. You'd think
Yeah,
she'd
that was
go to
fun. I did
Diana.
like that.
But you think she'd go to Diana and be like, hey, listen, so I made this wish to be more like you, and now I can lift a fucking car over my head. Who the fuck are you? Where are you from? And how did you get these amazing powers?
Yeah.
That should have been the dynamic between these characters, but it wasn't. It doesn't make any sense. It actually makes the characters more disconnected.
Yeah, that
and
I feel.
But I like the fact that Barbara inadvertently gained these powers unknowingly by making this wish. Like she's just like, I want to be more like Diana. I want to have a hot ass and great hair, and I want fucking guys to look at me, right? The mousy girl in high school. I want to be Miss Popular.
I'm not even completely sure if she was aware that. See, the thing is, like, she had only been aware of the wish. No, like Diana tells her about the stone. She doesn't really believe in the stone that whole time.
Right.
Like, I don't think during her transformation, I don't think look at me defending this movie, Jesus Christ. I don't think she was aware that, like, this wish is the thing that actually gave
Dude,
her.
I think she put two and two together.
abilities.
Come on. I think she put
No.
2 and 2 together.
Eventually,
I mean,
yeah.
okay,
At
honestly,
first, I don't think
if
she
I had
knew.
gotten powers, like if I had gotten powers out of nowhere, I wouldn't be thinking about anything else. I would just be thinking about my powers. Like I
I don't
wouldn't
know,
be
man.
like, you know what I mean? I'd be so self-absorbed about my
Yeah.
own power that I probably, I don't know, like I could feasibly overlook how I got it. You know what I mean? Like I'd be, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's where I'm with Chris on this. That's what I was thinking as well. Because she might be like, if I ask anything, what if it goes away? Like I think I could see like reasons as to why she doesn't go to Diana first.
But
you
that
know.
could have been a dynamic to build a better relationship between those two characters.
I don't think they
Right?
needed to have
Yeah,
a better
yeah, I agree with
relationship
that, for
though,
sure.
because it was kind of one-sided to begin with. Like Barbara wanted to be friends with Diana, and Diana was just like indifferent. Diana did not care. She's
Yeah.
like, okay, whatever. You're just some girl from work.
Yeah,
I'm not
but
here
the
to make
relationship
friends."
sucked from the get-go, right?
Well, I mean, the dramatic tension was meant to be because they turn against each other.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that was one of the good things about this movie is that the bad guys are arguably not bad guys.
Yeah.
Namely for Cheetahs. If they had a better relationship because of Frank's change, I could see it being better for dramatic tension.
Yeah,
but
I think
even
it
that,
would have
they,
made
like,
more
bumped.
sense if Diana said something to like offend her or something like that. There had to be maybe some kind of conflict between the two of them.
Yeah.
Okay, can we talk about these wishes, like the climax?
I still want to talk about Max Lord a bit. This is where I was talking about that giant plot hole. I don't know if you guys noticed this. When Diana goes in to grab the stone out of that box, there's like this ticket,
Ring.
right?
Oh, okay.
Like this
Yeah.
ticket. It had like a claim ticket, and it says that Max Lord had taken it. Like his name was on it. She looks at the business card. She's like, "Oh, I have to go find this guy and get the stone back." But Max Lord didn't have the stone at that point. He takes the stone in the following scene when he's at the party, where he takes what's her face in his. He takes Barbara into her office.
Are you sure that's not after?
No.
That's
That's not a
after.
plot hole. That's not a plot hole.
That's a
The
giant
the
plot
thing
hole.
is, no, because they because Wonder Woman had stopped the robbers from, because so Max Lord was supposed to get it because the jewelry store was dealing black market stuff in the back, but then Wonder Woman stopped the robbers, and then the cops found out about it and then confiscated all of the artifacts, and then ended up there, and that's why he was looking for it. That's why he bought the place in the first place. That's why he bought or like invested in the whatever it was, Cheetah's company.
Yeah.
And then and that's how they got it.
Yeah, I know, but the claim
Right?
ticket is there to say that this person, this individual, already took this item and is borrowing it. So that's what I was saying. Like those sequences were edited out of
Wait,
continuity.
are you sure Are you sure that
Are
wasn't
you
after?
sure that was?
No,
I
it
don't
wasn't.
think
It
that
was before. Trust me, before. I've seen it 3 times.
Oh,
And every
wow.
time
a
I'm
lot
just
of
like,
time.
this is ridiculous. But he gets the stone 20 minutes later at a party. Like the stone's already gone. He already has it, but then he takes it at the party. It's there. You guys can watch it
Yeah,
for
I'm not sure.
yourselves.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I
about
always
that
thought it
either.
was like he was trying to get it previously before the robbers even.
I thought he
like,
stole it from Barbara's office. That's why he was.
He
hitting
did
on
when he
her
was
and
making
yelling
out
at
with her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, but that's 20
But
minutes
he
later.
just wanted the stone the whole time.
Right, but that's 20 minutes later at the party, right?
Interesting.
Right.
All right, we're all gonna have
Yeah.
to go back and see this scene
Yeah.
again because
Yeah.
there's a lot of debate back and forth. Yeah. Okay.
Oh no, so I was just gonna say regarding Max Lord, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts and feelings about this particular character and Pedro's performance. The way that I felt about Pedro's performance, I almost felt like it was all direction. It wasn't his interpretation of the character. I almost felt like because that performance had to match his lines and had to match the character that was designed for him, right? And I don't think if it was up to Pedro, we would have played that character that way. He wouldn't have hammed it up as much as he did. Because whenever I saw him in an interview talking about this character, he was excited about the complexities of the character and the nuances of the character. And, you know, he was really excited to play this character and he was going to be really cool. But this guy was like as cheeseball as it fucking comes. Right. And I just felt like there was nothing to establish this character in the beginning of the story to kind of lead up to everything, you know? Like there was no primer for his interest in the Dreamstone at all. Like
So they established it after the fact. You know how they gave us that flashback?
yeah, I know. Yeah,
Near the
yeah.
end where you're like he's been, which again looks like, I don't know. It's another sort of trope. That's the thing, is that character could be really complex, I think. And I think the relationship with the son as well could have been more but it did feel, I think I said this, a little cartoonish in portrayal
Mm-hmm.
of the character. And like I think Pedro Pascal is like an amazing actor.
He
I've
is.
seen
He's
him
incredible.
in multiple things.
Yep.
And he always, like, he's not like a guy that I would say seems to half-ass his roles.
Nope.
But I do think he was trying to fit whatever vibe was probably being set in terms of, you know, the rest of the movie, because he doesn't feel out of place for the movie. It's like the way the
Yeah.
movie was.
Yeah.
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 And there were a lot of popular fraudsters in the 80s. This was like
Yeah.
a thing. There were a lot of people that did a lot of things
Savings
that
and
brought
loan and yep.
a lot of stocks down and a lot of big companies
Yep.
put them under,
Black
right?
Monday.
So
Yep.
yeah, like I remember reading a lot of those happen in the 80s. There was more than one. So I feel like he was supposed to be playing that kind of character. But those fraudsters, they weren't hammy characters. They weren't these like, they didn't feel like con artist businessmen. Like they were people that you would actually believe was a
Yeah,
businessman.
they were shrewd.
And they were intimidating and they treat people like shit and scare people and, you know, create an environment where people didn't want to go to the cops and like tell the cops what was going on, right?
Yeah.
They were scared to like lose their jobs or something as well. So I just think like the way he played it out, it didn't really work.
Yeah, I will say that I kept thinking like, yo, if you like sold your offices, like you'd probably be able to pay back a lot. Because I was like, that building
Yeah.
looks so grand. I'm like,
Yeah.
you could probably get a few mil for that.
Yeah.
At least.
For sure. I really feel like the creative team just kind of steered this character in the wrong direction from the get-go. And I agree with Saba.
I think he should have been intimidating. I think they were missing that like intimidation factor.
It was the lack of the lead in, right? Like if you would open the movie with a group of really capable and formidable criminals putting together this crazy heist plan to steal these stones and not make them complete dumbasses at the beginning. And then you attach those characters to Max Lord, but Diana doesn't know that they're attached to Max Lord until later on in the first act. And that's when Max Lord gets kind of introduced. Like it's one of these, is he not? Like, is he attached to this? Is he not? And there's like some sort of subtlety. Then the lead up to the introduction of the character being the bad guy is much better. And I think one of the problems with this movie is they did so many trailers where they told you so much about this movie that the lead in for these, like a good solid lead in for these characters, especially the villains, was unneeded. because we already knew that Max Lord was the bad guy, and we already knew that Barbara Minerva was Cheetah, and they really need to stop doing this shit because they're shooting themselves in the fucking foot.
For sure.
Yeah, I can. There's just one more thing I want to say about Max Lord. Is that I feel like the one thing that kind of got to me, and I think, you know, we've touched on it with like not being intimidating. I think when he made that wish to like become the stone, I think we should have saw the God of Lies in play here, like, you know, like something more than just him holding his head and like you know what I mean, like becoming sort of a different person, like even like a host like thing. I just felt like it was like a weird thing. And Chris, you were talking about
it would have been
wishes,
cool
right?
if he was like a little bit demonic or something.
Yeah.
Well, he should have became the stone. Like if you're like, I want to be you, the dream stone, he should have turned onto a stone, hit the table, movie over, roll credits. Like that's that.
Oh, it's like an Aladdin thing. It's like when he wishes to be a genie.
Yeah. Like that's the way it should have been, but it wasn't that way. Now, the one thing I will say that redeems this movie is the consistent through line about indulgence, self-indulgence, and just opulence and greed. I like that. That's really the only thing that really redeems this movie at the end.
I did like that as a theme as well.
Yeah.
And I liked how each character had their own struggle with trying to give up that thing that was so important to them that they had wished for it.
See, they could have played that up more, but instead they gave Diana, like, her theme was supposed to be about truth for some reason. See, the thing is, like, they put that thesis right in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Like the trainer girl tells, I forgot her name. I should know her name, but like the warrior, the Mascarian tells.
Was it Hippolyta? Was that Hippolyta?
Diana, yeah, sure. The thesis of the movie was supposed to be about truth. And it didn't really, like, they just kept saying the word truth over and over again. But yeah, what you guys said made more sense, like indulgence and like sacrificing. And I don't really understand, like, they didn't really prove the thesis, in my opinion. Like, it just kind of fell apart. She just kept saying the truth. I understand that it's like the wishes are lies. In a way, right?
Chris,
but
that gives me an idea. Like kind of what Christina said, how like if she was just seeing a figment of her like imagination,
that's why it would have worked better,
and that
right?
was like a lie, like, you know what I mean?
It would have made way more sense.
That's what I mean. They could have played it. They could have played it up more. I just like, I don't know, like especially coming from the first one, because the first one was just a battle of principles, right? That's one of the biggest critiques of that movie was in the end of the fight. Well, at the end of the movie, they fought instead of having a fight of principles. Right, and in this one, like the principles were so loose, it was just like they weren't really warring in they weren't warring in ideals. They were warring like it was. I don't know. I think it wasn't executed right.
What they should have done is they should have had Steve Trevor be like Christina was saying, like a figment of her imagination, like some sort of spirit or whatever. And then that spirit is,
and she has to admit it there,
malevolent. It's not a good spirit. It's like he's taken the form of Steve Trevor, and then the spirit is saying, you need to help this man Max Lord, because Max Lord is going to do all this good with this particular power. You need to help him.
Yeah,
that would have been a better story.
Yeah, I don't know though, because like it makes the significance of the character of Steve Trevor like lower, because it's not actually Steve Trevor. It's just the image of Steve. You know what I mean? Like,
sure,
it's gonna mean less to Wonder Woman to find out that it was, because it's like, oh, I have to, like, I don't agree with the fact that she had to give up Steve Trevor a second time. I think that was a stupid move. But like, if you're gonna take that away from the current movie, then we have nothing.
Sure.
Right? Because if she doesn't actually have to give him up, then then the point of her sacrifice is
meaningless. Yeah, but the fact that she doesn't know that like she wouldn't know that that's what she had to do, right? She didn't even know that she made a wish, right?
Yeah, but you could also make the argument that this is a moment for her of clarity, where it's like, I was so invested in this guy for so long, for like 80 years. If I'd moved on with my life, this guy wouldn't have that hold on me where it could almost bend me to the dark side.
So I would say if they did that instead with like the malevolent, whatever, I can't say that word right now. Malevolent spirit, I would probably like this movie less.
Yes. What?
I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't. I think it would make me like it less. I like that it was I mean, I do agree that I don't think he should have been brought back as much as I love Chris Pine.
But because they did, it had to be the real him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's meaningless. There's no point. It's a charade.
I
Well,
will
no,
say
it's
one
like
of
if
the
you ever
movies-
have a vivid dream, right? Where you go back to like a point in time that makes you sad or something. Like you do have to relive that, and then you're like, shit, why did I have to relive that, right?
Yeah, but like that makes it more ephemeral than the real thing. She had to give him up a second time. That was the plot.
Well, the point was
if
that
she didn't,
yeah, the point was that she had to give him up to get her powers back and everything. So I don't know. I still think they could have done that. They could have achieved that and caused her like emotional pain, even if it was like psychological instead of real.
Yeah, I would say though that because one scene that I really did like was the scene right where she says like I renounce like my wish.
Yeah.
That last scene of them together, like that real like guys, I don't know. It was
it was powerful.
Like, it was like a Thursday night. I was feeling emotional. Like that scene almost made me tear up. Like there was a beauty in that scene to me. Like it felt real, and it was really because of the actors. Because like you said this too, Chris. The casting, like I think. Gal Gadot is an amazing Wonder Woman. I think Chris Pine is like a really good, like Steve. I almost said Steve Rogers, Steve Trevor. He could have been okay, Steve Rogers. Who knows? But I really liked that scene. And as she's running away, we hear him yell, like, I love you. And she kind of says, I renounce my wish, and like, I love you too, kind of thing. And I thought that was beautiful. Really, like it's not my favorite plot point that he came back, but that scene to me, I don't know.
I did
really
like that too.
Yeah, but
and I also did like how the more the more stuff she did with him, the more she wanted him around, the more power she lost, and he knew. It felt like he knew that what she had to do, and she kind of knew too, but she didn't want to admit it.
They should have made that more apparent.
Yeah, I think that needed to be more apparent.
Yeah, because it didn't hit me for a bit until he was like, "You're losing your powers." I was like, "Is she?" And I was like, "I guess she is." Like I feel like they should have had like a thing where she tries to do something and it's like not working. You know what I mean? Because she still had like.
Well, she starts to bleed. She starts to get cuts and stuff. So I think she knows, but then. She's not like admitting it to herself. That was
also the other thing. Her powers are pretty inconsistent, which I guess sort of gets explained by her losing her power. But even then, it wasn't a straight trajectory. Like she was pushing a truck at one point with her arms.
Yeah.
That scene later, like a shot later, 2 trucks were trying to squeeze her in, and she was pushing it like she was pushing it with her legs, which should have been easier.
Yeah.
Than the first time.
But I think she was already losing her powers at that point.
But Chris is saying,
what I mean. It's just like it goes up and down.
Yeah.
Like it's so inconsistent.
Yeah, no, for sure. Let's talk about Gal's performance, because some people have been very critical of Gal's performance in this. They said that some people have gone as far as saying like, did Gal forget how to act? And honestly,
some scenes I'll give it to them.
I feel
some
like
scenes I can give it to them.
Yeah, I feel like the scenes were all over the place. Like I think within each scene, maybe she did a good job, but then it's like what Chris said, it was like inconsistent. But I feel like that's more of a direction problem than a Gal problem.
Yeah,
there were some scenes that are hard to act though. Like, okay, so she really didn't have that much chemistry with. You guys can probably like argue with me here, but like she didn't have that much chemistry with Cheetah's character. There's a lot of funny moments between the two of them, like that's for sure. But like their on-screen chemistry isn't that good. Like that dinner scene in particular, like first of all, they did the trope where somebody tells a joke and then the scene starts after the joke and they're laughing and then they're like, "Oh, I've never laughed." Like that was already so tropey. That scene, I don't think like either of them really did a very good job. But I think it's just because the scene was really badly written.
Yeah.
But she had good moments with like Steve, because I guess like they already had chemistry from the last movie. I don't think like I think a lot of people's criticisms on her were too rough. I think like a lot of it wasn't her fault, but I do see inconsistencies in her acting. For sure.
I think one of the only reasons people wanted her to have more chemistry with Barbara is just because of their comic book relationship. I think in the context of the movie, it made sense that it was sort of one-sided. Like Barbara thinks that Diana's the coolest. But Diana's kind of like
Christina,
more distant, right?
Not character chemistry, like actors chemistry.
Acting chemistry.
I don't mean like I don't mean like their characters like having like chemistry with each other. I just mean like the way they acted. It didn't feel real to me. In particular, that dinner scene, and also some here and there as well.
Yeah,
here's
I
the
don't
thing
know.
about-
I feel like I didn't mind the dinner scene. Sorry, go ahead, Saba.
There's one thing about the dinner scene that I hated, and
Okay.
I will tell you, is when it cuts in, she's laughing so
She's
loud,
laughing.
and then she
Yeah.
says, "You're so funny," and I'm just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, what?"
Yeah, that was
It's so
in
I think
tropey.
that's a- I
hate
think
it
that's
when
a-
they do that.
I think that's a hard line to act.
that was
I
an
will give it to.
awkward, yeah, that was an
Yeah.
awkward cut. That was a very
Yeah.
awkward cut.
It's weird because she said,
Yeah.
"You're so funny," like whatever. If someone
Yeah.
says that to me,
No, she
I
says-
feel like they're
she
being
says, I ha-
patronized.
Go ahead.
Oh no, what were you gonna say? I'm done.
No, I was gonna say like she was like, oh, I haven't laughed that hard in a long time. How do you act the scene after that line?
Yeah, it's
Jesus.
hard.
Yeah,
Because
like
there's
the
no
lines are
actual joke, yeah.
terrible. So I don't know.
Yeah, that was a bit, that opening to me was just like really like weird and 80s but like shot in the 80s, not like a montage.
Yeah.
It's just like a weird line to act into, even to be like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like I haven't laughed this hard in forever. You're so funny, like
Yeah.
kind of.
Could you
Yeah.
imagine if you're reading the script and being like, "What?"
Okay, let's talk about the stunts and action sequences because we haven't really talked about that. Was anybody impressed with any of the stunt coordination or the action sequences or set pieces?
So that little girl in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that whole opening scene, like that. I didn't like, and honestly, like that was probably like the most Wonder Woman like scene inside the entire movie.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you guys say that? In
Yeah.
terms
I
of-
made a
Agreed.
joke after that scene. The movie stopped being about Wonder Woman.
That
was just
that
like-
scene was so good. I was so
Yeah, that scene was really
Yeah,
good.
I
I
don't know,
really
man.
like that. I wish that more of the movie was that good.
I don't know. Like in Justice League, she gets the first scene too, right? She gets the first opening scene in Justice League, and if I compare those two scenes, that scene like is 40 times better than the opening scene we got in this movie. And I don't know why they went so light on the effects, because Wonder Woman in Justice League was like moving at the speed of a bullet, doing some really incredible things. And on this one, other than like the lasso of truth tricks, it wasn't really that great. And we see who she's fighting, and that doesn't really set up the stakes for the movie at all. It's just like, oh, she's gonna fight a bunch of drunk guys who decide to rob a jewelry store on a Saturday.
we're talking about the mall opening scene and
Yeah.
not the Themyscira scene.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We're talking
Okay.
about the Themyscira scene stands alone on its own. It's fantastic.
Yeah, to me
It's
that
really
was the
well
best
done.
scene in the movie, the
Yeah.
Themyscira scene, and I
Without a
love that
doubt.
it was like a whole gladiator thing. My family got into the whole thing where like she cheats, and my dad's like, "Oh, she cheated. She should get disqualified. Why isn't she disqualified?" And then even like the way that the older lady like takes her out of the race, she just like clotheslines her and is
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
"You're
Antiope.
disqualified."
Yeah, Antiope. But then again, that line in the intro doesn't come back to end the movie for some reason. Like that's what you're supposed to do as a screenplay writer. Is your opening scene is supposed to connect in some way to your?
No, they tried. They
They
tried.
did.
Well,
They
it
did say
was
the whole
truth.
truth thing.
Yeah.
I
The truth
guess.
thing,
I
it just didn't work. In my
yeah
opinion.
yeah I guess I don't know, but anyways,
But yeah, the mall scene felt misplaced. Like it didn't feel like
I
the mall
hated
scene
the
should have
mall
been
scene.
there.
The mall
It
scene was
set
the
such
worst.
a
the worst.
it set such a weird like tone for the movie.
Yeah.
That like they had to
Saturday morning
like,
cartoons.
fight.
That's what I got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the winking and the fucking
The dangling of the little girl over the
Oh,
just
yeah.
so random to me
Totally
as well.
random.
Because even like his own
It
guys
was
are like,
pretty
"What are
funny.
you doing?"
Yeah. When the guy was
Yeah.
like, "What are you doing?" That was pretty funny.
Well,
but like,
I
the whole
also
scene
thought
just
it was weird how she tried so hard to like take out the security cameras. And, like that was the whole thing. Like, oh, nobody can see me.
Well, that's
whatever.
her
And
whole
then
I think it
thing,
makes
right?
sense in
That- yeah.
because like in Batman versus Superman, like no one's really seen her. Like he finds photos,
No.
so she's it makes more sense in the 80s that like
that
maybe
that makes
people
sense,
talk
but
about
like
her,
she
but-
never does that at any other point in the movie. At no other point in the movie does she try to hide her
Yeah,
identity.
that's true.
That is
Only
true.
in that like one mall.
she goes
scene.
to the White House
That's true.
and
Yeah,
there's a
she just like
soldier.
what
She goes to
storms into the White House.
That's true.
Unless
That's very true.
everything that happens when people are under
Yeah.
the spell doesn't count. I don't know. But
Yeah.
No, and there's no way. Even if that was the case, she had no way of knowing that.
But I think in that first mall scene, if the bad guys had been the least bit formidable or threatening and not a bunch of like goofballs, on their lunch break with, shitty guns trying to fucking rob a jewelry store, like it would have set a better tone for the movie to start.
No, because you gotta understand, Frank. Like most of the problems you're pointing out is all stem from one decision, which is let's make it campy, right? Like they set the tone that the movie was supposed to set. What you disagree with is the actual is that one decision to make it campy.
Well, the tone
That's
should
the
have been
problem. Like,
no.
the tone should have been different, but then
Right.
it would have been a different movie.
That's fine.
Well, I mean, I agree. It should have been a different
Well,
movie.
clearly
but,
it should have been a different movie. All we're doing is shitting
but that's
on
the
it.
problem. But that's the problem though. It's just like
Yeah.
it's like you can't point out that scene as being the problem because it's not the problem. It set the tone of the movie that they wrote. You know what I mean? Like that.
But it does feel
if you change
misplaced. That scene at least feels misplaced. Like I think it could have
technically it
happened
doesn't.
at
No,
a different
no.
point
Technically,
in time.
technically, it doesn't feel misplaced because that movie, like the movie, followed that through line. It was that campiness. But almost every single criticism we have stemmed from that one decision, which is like it's just too campy, too cartoony, right? And it's like that scene isn't really misplaced. It's a bad scene within the same context of a bad movie, right? You know what I mean? Like it's all
And you know
it's
what?
all consistent, but it's all consistently bad.
Maybe the way in which they were going to deliver the through line at the end was just too sophisticated for the way that they started the movie. Because
I would have liked to seen them go to the museum after the Themyscira scene. I think they could have gone to the archaeology stuff after that.
well, like to me, this is the way I would have done it. It would have been Max Lord being connected to these robber guys. Diana hears about this break-in. She starts doing research, finds out that the stone is imbued with power. She, contacts somebody back on Themyscira or something. And don't tell me they can't do that because in Titans, Wonder Girl did that a couple of times. So that can be done. So that's the way I would have set it up because honestly, Max Lord was like impotent as fuck. Like he really didn't
But that's what I mean. We could have gone from Themyscira to something about archaeology. Then maybe on the weekend she decides she's going to be Wonder Woman. I don't know.
I think she's more of an anthropologist than an actual archaeologist.
Okay,
but
fine. Anthropologist, archaeologist, whatever.
Well,
But
it's not
I
really
feel
the
like
same thing, but yeah, okay.
it's not the same thing. But I said archaeology because she's dealing with artifacts.
Yeah,
Why is she
right.
dealing with artifacts if she's an anthropologist?
Well,
I
she's
don't know. Well, I
she's a
guess-
cultural anthropologist, but yeah, okay. But anyways,
Okay, I guess.
Okay, so the other action sequence is the one in Bialya, which is the tanks. And yeah, it was like, I don't know. Really the only action sequence I enjoyed was the fight scene at the end. It was okay. It wasn't the greatest, but the part where
I like the White House.
yeah, the White House is pretty good too. But the part where she tries to she electrocutes Barbara as Cheetah. She's in a metal suit in water, and she doesn't get affected by it. And at the end of Titans,
It would depend on what the metal
No,
is. Not all
okay,
metals are
I'm-
conductive, but yeah.
Come on, that's not
Oh,
true.
I mean, if we're getting
Just
this is-
saying.
That's not true. Are
It
you
is.
sure?
It is true. Not all metals are
Are
conductive.
you sure about that?
No,
Okay.
Yeah.
but- okay. So I don't want to argue
That-
on this because this is
That's a stretch.
this is like
yeah.
semantics, but still,
Yeah.
like if you put somebody in a metal suit, you have to
Yeah.
expect your audience to think that this is the
Yes.
the,
Yeah.
Yes,
the majority
okay, yes.
conductive metal. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
no audience is gonna be like, it's okay. It's not the type of metal that's non-conductive. Like no one's
Like
thinking
I'm pretty sure gold's not that
So
conductive.
gold is-
I don't think
yeah.
it's gold.
Which
It's
I
not
don't
gold.
even
It's
think
definitely not
Can we talk
gold.
But
Can we talk about this suit because I was really excited about this suit and I felt
You
like it was
were?
unearned.
You were?
Like I was like this is Themyscira, like at least a visual reference to Themyscira. Not Themyscira. Fuck. What am I trying to say?
I just thought they were trying to desexualize her.
Hawk woman.
Yeah. I just thought they were just trying to I literally just thought they were trying to desexualize her. That's what I thought. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is with the suit is that like there was so much like selling point of this suit being symbolic,
Yeah.
as if like our best warrior wears this.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, so she has to earn it somehow, right? But no, she just puts it on, and it was like there's no significance to this thing except for the fact that it looks cool. Like there was like you set up this whole backstory for this suit.
yeah, she doesn't win
And
it.
there
Yeah.
wasn't a moment where it was like, yes, I'm ready for this suit
Yeah.
now, or something like that.
Yeah.
But she just wears it, and then it just gets destroyed right
Yeah,
away.
that's the
Like,
thing. It's like also the lead up to that scene. So she like went back to her apartment. She like put it on,
Yeah.
and then she flew over. Like I always think of like the in between scenes, of her like
Yeah.
getting somewhere. So she's like, gotta like put this on, make sure. And then the fact that like Cheetah was like
Just
breaking it
kills
apart.
it, destroys it.
Yeah. I mean, but she is using the shield
It was-
part at first, like with the wings, and then
Yeah.
she goes into
Okay.
it.
Okay.
It was just insignificant. It was just
Okay.
insignificant to me. It was like it didn't mean anything.
Okay. So
Like it lost all of its
What?
meaning. So what?
okay. So you're talking
What?
about that flying scene, and then she decides to go get her suit. Okay. So by the way, she like when she leaves Steve Trevor, she's in Washington already, right? Right. She's
Yeah.
already in Washington. Okay. She flies for like a good fucking
I know.
10
She
minutes.
flies for a bit.
Right? A good 10 minutes, right? She's probably in Virginia by now. And then she like decides to turn around, go back to the Watergate. By the way, I love the fact that they chose the Watergate for her
Yeah,
apartment.
I know that was
That was dope. But she flies back to her apartment, gets her suit, and then goes off again with no knowledge of where Max Lord is or Barbara Minerva is. So yeah, anyways.
And then flies there, and then her
Yes.
suit breaks in the first volley of fight.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just, come on,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Uh.
Makes no sense. There's just like, you know, has anybody checked to see if Patty Jenkins has done any screenwriting before? Because I'm looking at comments on IMDb, and there's people like, Patty, don't ever write another movie again. Stick to directing.
I mean, it wasn't just
Like-
Patty. I mean, Jeff Johns,
I know.
Patty Jenkins,
I
and
know.
David Callahan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all-
something went wrong.
Yeah.
in the
in the
I
writers'
think
room.
honestly, it was a decision to make it like central, like the 80s as a central part of the story. I think that was the big mistake that they all because it gave them license to be like, oh, we can make it campy, we can make it this, we can not explain a lot of things because it's okay, they'll let it go.
Nope.
It
Oh,
all just fits
wow.
into the 80s thing.
Not anymore.
What?
Yeah, just looking up, she wrote the movie Monster. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Oh
but
shit.
Charlize Theron won an Oscar for that.
Yeah, that was a
Snap.
good movie.
Wow.
Yeah, so she has experience writing, and we know Jeff Johns does. And David Callahan, I don't know much about him, but I know he's going to be a writer on, like I said, Shang-Chi, and also I think the new Spider-Verse movie as well. And I
Mhm.
think he's probably done stuff in the past. But yeah, it is like, there's three people who can, I'm assuming, write a movie. I wonder,
Yeah,
this is
something went wrong.
This
in-
is
in
my
the
other
writing
theory
process.
about this movie. And
Can
let
we all
me know
agree
if you
that that's
guys-
where everything fell apart was in the writers' room? Can we all agree?
Probably,
Yeah.
but this is my theory. I don't know. So this is my theory, and I don't know if you guys will agree with this or not, but I wonder, so maybe like let's imagine the pandemic didn't happen. This movie came out in the summer. I think we would still find issues with it, but it would have been that summer blockbuster. But I think like if after the year we've had, I don't know, like it just hit different. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? I feel like with
I
everything
do agree
that's
with that.
going
I think
on-
this would have been better in theaters if like we had a normal theater
but not
release
even that
for it.
is
I think-
it's just also like the depth to it with movies and shows that we're watching these days. Like I think with superhero movies, one thing that I think that sometimes they lack to do, and not all of them, there have been some that do this, is kind of dig deep into what is going on and like letting actors act and letting it be about storytelling as opposed to scenes and like cool like I'm gonna, use lightning and go through the air and stuff. Like, you know what I mean? I wonder if we were just looking for something deeper. Because I know a lot of the stuff that I tend to watch outside of the MCU is like I like watching indie movies. I like watching these character-driven stories, right? And so I wonder if like after also just the year and everything, that this movie just felt kind of out of place.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're letting them off a little too
Maybe.
easy. I really do. Now,
Yeah.
I think you have
something there. But
yeah, I think you have a valid point, Saba. I really do. Like, I think that the climate that we're currently in has a lot to do with it, maybe. But at the same time, though, technically, just from like
an objective filmmaking
yeah,
perspective,
like
Yeah,
the story
no.
structure, like
there was just
yeah,
things
yeah,
that I can point out that my film class wouldn't
Yes.
oppose me on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I just think it just felt even more so just because it just
Mhm,
felt
mhm.
it just
Oh,
felt
it
a little
added
out of
to it.
place.
100%. Yeah.
like
yeah.
like it's almost like they were writing their scenes in a vacuum, and it all just got mangled together at some point. Like that's kind of the
Yeah,
where
I
I'm
do
at.
feel like they were like, oh, I have this great scene, let's fit it in somewhere. That's what I said about
Yeah.
in the top of the show, was that like a lot of these scenes I felt like they just had an awesome idea for a scene, like that art scene with Chris Pine like fucking thinking the trash can was art. Like that's a funny scene, and they're just like, oh, let's put it somewhere.
Yeah, but
You know what I mean? And it's just like didn't really.
yeah, but I don't.
That's also a movie trope though, like man at a time.
Yeah, that's
like
they already
wandering
did it with
around
Steve
trying to figure
Rogers, right?
things.
Yeah, no, like I totally
Yeah.
agree. But
and Wonder Woman,
but
the first Wonder Woman.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But the thing with this is like this to me, okay? Like the way that I see this is like the normal process is to be in a room with your fellow creatives and you're throwing ideas back and forth, right? And you're vetoing or you're knocking down ideas or you're lifting ideas up and you're going through the process. This is the creative process. I feel like the creative process was cut short, but the way that I see things is that there was nobody. This definitely wasn't written in the same room, like going over note cards and whiteboards and being like, hey, does this scene work? And because if that's the case, somebody's going to say, well, you know what? Wonder Woman's wearing a metal costume. She's in the water. She's electrocuting Cheetah. She's going to electrocute herself at the same time. So this thing doesn't make sense. Right. And I see that.
Oh, and I looked it up. So all metals are conductive. Some are just more
Yeah,
conductive.
gold
than
is
others.
the least. Gold is like probably the least conductive metal. I agree.
Gotcha.
Can we move on?
But yeah.
Can we move on from
Gotcha.
conductive metals?
But
please?
Gotcha.
here's the thing. I just feel like, you know, we cannot, like, I just feel like you're finding a way to put all the blame on Patty, and I don't think that's the case. Because,
No, I'm not trying to
because
put all the blame on Patty.
because the
I'm
movie
saying
was
the
being
creative
written-
team. I'm saying the
Well-
entire creative team.
yeah, the entire creative team for sure. Because this movie was started, like, they started writing it, I think, a little bit before 2017. Like, the
Mhm.
oldest article I can find is around like 2016, 2017. They're writing it. That's like about 5 years ago now, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, they're all working together, and yeah, people have different relationships and stuff, but you know, it really just probably just falls on the entire creative team there in terms of
Right, but the logic, but like what I see, right, tells me that this film wasn't written, like it wasn't written as a team in the same room.
Yeah, there was a disconnect.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, we can assume that they weren't in a room together, but we can also assume that they were and they fucked up, you know?
You could assume
Like-
that too, but
Yeah.
but given
Maybe they just didn't edit the script enough before they started
well,
filming.
that's another failure on their part as a creative team, right?
It feels like they could have reviewed it a couple more times. before
I
they filmed
completely
things. I
agree
don't
with
know,
that.
but-
I completely agree with that. There wasn't enough drafts of this
Yeah.
script done because if I'm reading through that script and I see some of these plot holes, I'm gonna be like red, like fucking the biggest
No,
highlighter.
not only that, just some of the lines that they say are
Yeah.
like, really? You're
Also,
going with
I
I
that
will
didn't
say
really
I do
find the
have this
di-
article.
Go ahead,
Oh.
Saba.
I do have this article where it says Wonder Woman 1984 director Patty Jenkins praises co-writer Jeff Johns and also David. And so she's like, you know, she calls him the most prolific comic book writer in DC history.
He is, but that's just a fact.
And she said, Jeff and I clicked immediately a long time ago. Superman changed my life. And, you know, I was a huge admirer of his work. I've always wanted to aim to make something as great as that touched the masses soul. So, like, she's saying, like, very nice stuff about him.
That's
You
true.
know? So I do think that,
That's
you know,
true.
and she's saying, oh, I felt lucky to have gotten to work with both those great artists. So, yeah, I think that all three of them, you know, I think there was probably just a fuck up in the writer's room.
I agree, but like again, I just can't reconcile that these people worked on this script together. It just doesn't look like it at all because there's got to be a checks and balances system. There's got to be somebody saying that's a bad idea or that's a good idea. And I just feel like there's too many bad ideas in this particular script for it to actually make it into the movie if everybody's sitting in a room together going, vetting each other's work, right?
So this is why I never put people on a pedestal, because they just let you down, Frank. they just let you down in the end.
Copy that. No, for sure. We've had a lot of things to say about this movie. All of them, some positive, mostly negative. Is there anything that anybody else wants to say in closing here?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The fucking climax. Just one more.
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
'cause I
for
need to
sure.
get this off my chest.
For sure.
Okay, so you reverse the wishes. First of all, it's stupid because like people can just renounce their wishes. That's not how monkey's paws work. It's supposed to be like, oh, you're stuck with it now, or whatever. Like, now that you can reverse the wishes, I don't understand where you go from. Oh, I reverse my wish to this thing being So the president of the United States orders more nukes, and then he renounces his wish, and his nukes disappear. What about the nukes that had already existed that had launched? What about the Russian nukes? Well, like
That's
it
a
just
good point.
doesn't. It's
I
this
don't think
really-
any of that made sense.
It was
I think
just
so.
this really
That's a good
clean solution
Yep.
to this chaos that they created. It's like oh, the Russians launched first. Let's not forget that the Soviets were the first ones to launch. What happened to those nukes? Like, did you rewind time? if you're gonna set that up,
Well,
like,
it's not. Well, see, the problem isn't just that, Chris. It's okay. So Max Lord wishes to become the Dreamstone, right? As soon as he renounces
Yep.
his wish to be the Dreamstone, all wishes are null and void. Everybody should have been.
I was thinking about that because you told me about that. I don't think so because it had already been established that Max Lord destroyed the first stone, so it would have made
Yeah, but the stone would have came.
Diana's and Barbara.
Yeah, but the
What?
stone would have came back, right? Because because of his wish, the stone got destroyed. So the stone becomes physical again, right? And all the wishes, because he's the Dreamstone, everybody made their wishes through him, are null and void. So that entire scene at the end is all for show.
That's a trait of that's a trait of the stone that like you're making a leap. You know what I mean? So here's the thing. Like
I am making a leap, but it's the
first stone
chicken
gets
before
destroyed.
it's the chicken before the egg scenario, or the egg before the chicken. It's the same thing, right? Like one thing has to
Yeah,
come.
I agree with Chris though, because they said that the stone destroyed civilizations before it. So yeah, if that was the case, then wouldn't all of that have been undone too?
No, because one guy wished to become the stone. So what I'm saying is when Max Lord wishes to become the stone, he's imbued with all those stone's powers. So when people touch him and make wishes, he's the one that takes something away from somebody instead of just the universe taking something away from them, or the spirit in the stone, or whatever the hell you want to call it. And he grants the wish. So as soon as Max Lord undoes his wish, which is to become the stone, he becomes Max Lord again. He's no longer the stone.
Yeah.
So therefore, the stone, ipso facto, all the wishes are null and void.
I mean, you don't know if the stone recreated itself because it disappeared the first time.
That might be a stretch.
Turn into Max Stone.
That might be a stretch.
I mean,
but
the stretch is that the fact that if he renounces his wish, everything's null and void.
That's not a stretch. That's not a stretch.
Yes, it is.
No, because people
100% it is.
No, because people used him to make their wish. Because he had the powers, but then he doesn't have the power anymore.
But the first stone gets destroyed, but Diana and Barbara still have.
But you have to touch the stone to make the wish. So
this is like faulty writing on their part.
Yes,
they should have made it clear.
100%.
That's why this debate is happening, because it was not made clear.
Yes, but like they have to touch the stone. That's part of the process. That's part of the mechanics of the wishing. You have to touch the stone. You got to make your wish.
What does that have to do with it?
I mean, I don't think the mechanics of the wishing were.
Yes,
that
they
clear.
were.
They
You have
did.
to touch
He
the
did
stone.
He did make them touch him, like each time he
Yes.
grabbed their hands and
Yes.
held them. So it was like a weird implication that
Yeah, but then
But
how were
that
people
has-
able to make wishes from
Because
a
of the
distance
rays.
when
Because
you
of the
project
rays.
yourself onto
Yeah.
that are like
No, but
touching
that
him.
also doesn't make any sense.
That
The
makes no
fucking,
sense.
the
Because-
fucking top secret satellite that just happens to be on the display board when they come into the office.
I mean, that also doesn't make any sense because yes, the particles touch the people, but he never touched the particles, right? Like the
Yeah.
Well,
camera was pointing at
I
him,
will-
but he
okay.
never touched the
So
particles.
No, he
here's the
didn't, yeah.
thing, and I'm gonna get a little engineer on you guys, and this is dumb. This is the only way I could explain it. Is because basically what happens is that when you're using like a system like that, you have your analog voice, right? So your analog is going through. That's like your sine, cosine wave, whatever, and then you have a like analog to digital converter that changes that analog into zeros and ones, and then it comes out again as analog, right? So maybe they're saying the signal waves that he's sending. Like, I don't know. I'm actually going to stop right there. It doesn't matter.
That's not tactile at
Yeah,
all.
yeah, but those waves are not particles that are touching him, right? They're just down.
Yeah,
No.
you know, I'm done.
Visual.
See, okay, and then I just want to voice one more problem. Or Chris, were you done with your wishes?
No, yeah, sure.
You sure?
Yeah, it's just like the climax just didn't make any sense.
No,
to
the
me.
climax didn't make any sense to me either.
Yeah.
Like the one,
No, it
like the
didn't.
other thing was that.
Although I did like, sorry, dude.
No, go ahead.
I did like the fact that she won. So I think Patty or whoever listened to the first critique of the first movie. She should have solved the problem with her words, with her principles.
Yeah.
I did like the fact that she solved this problem by just making a speech, which is better than just punching the God of War as she did in the first one. So I did like that. However, like everything around it is just steaming pile of poop.
Well, the problem
Yeah, that part felt very Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
When she made a speech to make people.
Yeah,
listen.
it was very heart like it was a like it you know it was a story. It was our heart as a weapon. Yeah, for sure. But the problem I had was that wind, that force wind around Max Lord or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
She just managed once to get the fucking lasso of truth around that guy's ankle after like how many attempts? It just didn't make it didn't make any sense, right?
No,
So-
and also like you know how he was like taking people's like abilities or like taking people's life force. All I kept thinking was like, does somebody have wind powers that you took? Because somehow you're creating this who did you get that from? Because she could never control that before, and now apparently Wonder Woman can't even get through this wind. Where did you get that power?
I think
from?
it's like the power of the god of lies, and you know everyone got like a nice little like wind machine going every time they made a wish, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just all the wishes just caused
But it
like
did-
that. Yeah, you know.
I guess, but it pushed her as if he was he put his hand out and she like flew back and shit. It's like okay, let's. not get
I also
crazy with
feel
your
like they didn't have to go that far. Like I liked that they created all this chaos and stuff, but I think they could have done that without having to involve like all these wishes from all these people. They could have maybe avoided that problem because it was bad enough that he went to the Middle East and started causing drama in the Middle
Yeah.
East. And I actually kind of thought that was funny. Like I kind of liked how he did that, and I thought it was smart. He's like, oh, so ambitious. He's gonna go talk to like I don't know oil lords like in Saudi Arabia or something.
I have to say, I thought it was a little politically sticky for Gal Gadot to be in a movie where walls started going up in the Middle East.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was interesting.
yeah, that
Gotta
was
say,
maybe-
that was a little politically sticky
Yeah.
for me. I'm sure somebody was like, "What the fuck?" when they saw that, but that was a little crazy.
But it was part of the politics of that time period.
Oh, I know.
So in terms of like
Oh, I know.
aside from Gal Gadot's
Right.
heritage, like I think it makes sense in terms of like what was.
Well, it's not
happening
just
in
her
the movie.
heritage. She was an IDF
Oh.
soldier, like every Israeli.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to
Yeah,
be.
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
But
But
I-
go ahead, Sava.
Oh, I was gonna say, in all though, you know, with the wrapping up, I know we kind of talked about this. I mean, we said a lot of bad things. I have to say, I didn't hate it. But if I like go through each scene, does it make sense? Is there like holes to poke? Yeah, for sure.
It's okay, Sava, don't worry.
But wait, no, the
So
other
it's
thing,
the-
the thing that I want to say about this though is it's not the level that I expect of a
Yeah.
DCEU movie.
Yep. Nope.
You
me
know,
neither.
this felt
No.
like a campy kind of
Yep.
other sort of movie that's done. I'll watch it on a whatever night.
Yep.
You know, it didn't hold up to like, I think the word I'm missing is like epicness. You know what I mean? Like there's
Mhm.
like something
Mhm.
in it. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that was missing. Like it just didn't feel like
It undermined the character. It undermined the franchise.
just, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I'll agree
Yeah,
with
no.
that. And sorry, what I thought was funny about the Middle East scene, just to clarify, was the way that he took the security team and made the security team follow him. I thought.
Well,
that
he's
part
got the power, right? So, but okay. So
was-
here's the other thing I couldn't get over. I don't like that they change or they retcon Barbara's story. And the reason I didn't like it because the way that they wrote it in this movie. The whole I want to be an apex predator thing. What if she had turned into a fucking killer whale? Like,
Yeah, right.
right? Like,
That would've been funny, though.
what if she had turned
Yeah, and the
a
only
giant
reference
killer
to that
whale.
whole thing is that like she liked her cheetah print shoes. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just don't get like
yeah, there
it,
was no
it was a big
no
jump.
correlation
Yeah.
whatsoever. Yeah.
There's actually a lot of hints that she's gonna turn into cheetah throughout the film. There's all these like random cheetah print
yeah, there was
items
visual cues but
laid out.
nothing else.
Well, because of
There was also like a blanket in Max Lord's office had a cheetah print,
Yeah.
and then also some other
Well,
things I noticed.
No,
throughout
I
the
saw that
movie.
too, Christina. But the thing is, like, those were all
Yeah.
visual things. Like, she never showed an interest in cats.
Oh no, I know. I'm not saying it made sense.
Yeah.
I'm just saying they put
Oh,
it
yeah,
in
yeah,
there.
yeah.
there was no
They made all these like visual cues that she was gonna turn.
there was
into a
no
cheetah.
need to retcon her backstory. Like they could have kept the character the exact same. They could have started her at the beginning, obviously, right? It could have been some sort of zoological kind of accident or whatever. That doesn't mean she couldn't have worked at the Smithsonian too. There's ways that you could have brought these characters
or even
together.
some kind of artifact at the
Sure.
Smithsonian. Like
Yeah, like
Yeah.
something along the lines of what, like it could have been something along those lines, you know. But yeah, I think that was a huge miscalculation. But listen, guys, I'm a big fan of Patty Jenkins' work. I think she's a great director. I love that she's been the steward of this franchise. I don't know what happened here. I don't know. I'm disappointed. I'm just disappointed in the film that we got. And I'm a big fan of Jeff Johns' work. So I'm kind of dumbfounded. I just feel like this got phoned in. Like the effort just wasn't there. The oversight, there's so many producers on this movie. Gal was a producer. Zach and Deborah Snyder were a producer. And these are people that I really thought kind of understood, that you can't pass this stuff off to fans, like to this type of fan base. We're just too smart to swallow this crap. And I don't know. I almost feel disrespected, to be honest. And let's look at the price that they wanted to charge just to rent it. It was $29.99 just to rent it. You didn't even get to keep it. Like, it wasn't like you bought it, and like, it wasn't like, okay, we're going to release the film and you can buy it right now. They're going to bring it back out on Blu-ray and try and sell it again. But it was $29.99 to fucking rent this thing for a period of like 48 hours.
So I did rent it, but I watched it on Christmas with like my family. So I watched it with like 4 other people. So that was the only way I could justify renting it for that price. So I was like, okay, if we saw it in a theater, it would cost us 5 collectively more than that.
Like seriously, if I wasn't able to spread the cost around to this by watching it with other people too, if I had to pay $29.99 on my own, this whole review would just be me farting into the microphone right now, because that's how I fucking feel. Okay, I feel like
and I did offer for like friends to watch it too, because they give it to you for 48 hours. So I asked everyone, does anyone want to see it? But nobody wanted to see it.
48 hours for $29.99, and like, I don't know how you guys sleep at night. I really don't. But Patty, we don't hate you. Gal, we don't hate you. Pedro, I think you're still awesome. You're the Mandalorian, dude. Can't be mad at you. But I don't know. It's just a swing and a miss, I guess.
Yeah.
I was able to enjoy the movie like in the moment of the movie, but definitely as the plot holes started to build up,
just don't think about it much. Just don't think about it.
Yeah. I was very bothered. I was very bothered by Chris Pine's appearance, but then I realized they weren't going to resolve it. I waited like 20 or 30 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I guess they're just not going to help us with this. Fine, whatever. I give up. I'll accept that. But then as more and more plot holes started to build up, it became a bit frustrating. I was like, okay, that like kind of takes away from it. Yeah. I still tried to like stay in the moment of the movie and just like enjoy it for what it was. I'm not going to watch it again.
Before we go, Wonder Woman 3 has already been greenlit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Already been greenlit. Does WB quash it?
No, they're not going to.
No.
You don't think so?
No, I don't
see. Okay, so let me give you my final thoughts, because it ties into what you just said.
Sure.
Like, the biggest tragedy for me in this movie is because like the reason why I was so hard on this movie is because I know the types of stories that Wonder Woman can tell, and more importantly, the types of movies that nobody else can tell except for her in the DCEU. And it's like, this was such a missed opportunity and made it so much worse, knowing like the types of movies and the danger of this torpedoing the franchise is like makes it so much worse, because I want her to tell these stories, like the stories of hope, the stories that she excels at telling, and I do hope that, like, I don't think that they're gonna squash it, and at least I think she should get a second chance or third chance or whatever, but I don't think so, and they shouldn't. So yeah,
I don't think it did so much worse than some other DC movies that have done badly.
I don't know,
That's
man.
right, yeah.
People are comparing it to Green Lantern. So, and by the way, if you
Green
guys,
Lantern was...
Green.
Well, actually, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know actually.
But Patty Jenkins is also getting like Cleopatra. She's going to do
with
Cleopatra. Gal. She got Wonder Woman 3. She got Rogue Squadron. So,
yeah. I don't see them squashing Wonder Woman 3.
I don't think they're gonna
I really
squash
don't.
it.
I think, this movie definitely seemed like a bit of a misstep. I don't think they're going to kill the trilogy at all. If anything, they can probably just learn from some of the stuff.
They saw like how good she can be, right? Like the character in the first movie. Like they just have to smarten up and like
not treat
better,
us like idiots. Not treat us like morons.
maybe tweak the writers room a bit.
No, seriously, lock yourselves in the goddamn writers
and don't
room.
let the setting And don't let the setting dictate your story. Like that's a fucking disaster
Totally.
right there.
Totally.
Oh, let's set it in the 80s. Also, let's make it fucking feel like it's shot in the 80s. No, you dummies. Anyways.
The
Yeah.
80s was the most well-developed character in that fucking film.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well,
Guys, I like am over the 80s. I mean, I feel weird saying that I'm over the 80s, but like I just feel like there's been a lot of 80s nostalgia as of late. and
because you
so-
didn't live it, Saba. You didn't live it.
You're right. I was not even a concept then. I was not there. So I guess sorry, Frank.
Those
And
were the
everyone-
times. Those were the times. Does anybody feel like we were too harsh?
I think you were harsh
Come on. Come on. I just
because I don't
pointed-
feel like
I just pointed
no.
out plot
I'm
holes. That's all I did.
no. I understand.
wasn't
that.
harsh.
I don't think. I mean, I get it. Like I said, like I don't think it had the epicness that it deserved. and
Guys, it
stuff
broke
like
my
that, but
heart. It broke my
but
heart to do this
see,
review.
that's
It
where
really
I'm-
did.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, all right, Frank.
No, it did.
Just
Like,
pick yourself up by the
The movie
bootstrap.
had some
Sorry?
highlights.
I
There were
said-
some highlights. There were some scenes we all
Yeah,
enjoyed.
but, like,
That's
no,
why I'm
like-
just like, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, Frank. You know,
It-
you'll get through this.
It broke my heart to do this review. I didn't I really didn't want to do this review because I love Patty's work so much, and I love the Wonder Woman franchise so much, and I love Gal, and I think Chris Pine's a great actor. And I think Pedro's amazing, and I love Kristen Wiig. Like she's great. Like she has some
Yeah,
really
liked
scene-stealing
her a
moments
lot.
in this movie, but at the same time, the writers did them wrong. That's the way I feel. I don't know. And you know, I've seen some people say that Gal's performance may because she lost enthusiasm for it once she saw the script. I don't know. But I didn't feel that same Gal energy that we got in the first Wonder Woman. So I don't know. But you know, Wonder Woman 3, it's still gonna be on DC slate in the near future. Don't put Chris Pine in the story, please. As much as we love him, Steve Trevor does not need to be in this story. It's time for Diana to have her own story. And honestly, it's so sad that they've set up this world where she's been gone for so long. Because I think the prequel aspect of I think the prequel is a perfect place for Wonder Woman to operate in. And the reason I say that is because she is the emotional core of the Justice League. And there's so many times in history I would love to see her deal with. You know what I mean? But we can't do that now. Because if they do it, then it's the same thing we saw at the beginning of this movie. You know, like a foot coming out of nowhere and a red, gold, and blue blur like flying through to save the day, you know? But there's so many cool things they could have done if they didn't set it up that way. But that's what they did. But then again, with the multiverse, maybe they can bring in a new Wonder Woman that isn't hemmed in by this restriction. You know, that would be cool to see. Because I'd love to see her deal with World War II and civil rights movement and the 70s. I think the 70s would be awesome with Wonder Woman, to be honest. The punk scene, there was actually a Wonder Woman comic book where her aesthetic was punk. Like she looked like she was in the Sex Pistols. And I think that could be really dope to explore. But that's me. So yeah. Guys, thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for taking the time to sit down with us. We hope you enjoyed this review. I still want people to give this movie a shot. You know, you may like it. It may have all the things that you're looking for in a Wonder Woman movie. You know, we all have our individual tastes. So that's the best way for me to kind of end this is like, if you haven't seen it, go out and see it, and maybe you like it, maybe you won't. I don't know. But we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, and if you could, drop us a review on Podchaser, Stitcher, or Apple Podcasts, and be sure to tell your friends about our little show here. Sharing is caring. Well, I think we're going to end it here. We're going to sign off. I'm Frank McGuire.
I'm Christina Dudumas.
I'm Saba Mir.
And I'm Chris Abana.
Peace.